Everyone, thanks for coming to our first AWISE event of the year. This is called Professional Profiles. My name is Kate Fellhaber, and I'm one of the core team members of Advancing Women in Science and Engineering, along with Martina DeSalvo, Mariana Fontes, and Samantha Lee. So AWISE is a student group that is part of the Business of Science Center, which promotes innovation and entrepreneurship at UCLA. And we work to encourage women to be in leadership roles within science and engineering companies by offering training, education, and mentorship to all graduates who are entering the professional sector. AWISE hopes to inspire everyone to value diversity and its impact on innovation and ultimately break down existing gender barriers. Today's event is sponsored by UCLA Grad Division, so we thank them for helping us bring Mary Canady from San Diego to UCLA today. Allow me to introduce Mary to you all. So Mary earned her PhD in biochemistry, worked in academia for 10 years, and then switched over to marketing and business development at companies such as Life Technologies and Millipore. Mary founded Comprendia, a biosciences consulting group, in 2008 to help biotech companies adjust their marketing strategies to the online landscape of today. Mary is a blogger, a speaker, and social media thought leader, and today she is going to talk to us about resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Before I let her speak, though, I'd like to remind everyone that signed up for the workshop to stick around after this presentation. And we're actually going to host it in this room instead of all the way in Gonda. And there is still space for people that want to join in the workshop. So if you have your resume or want some hands-on experience with resume, you're welcome to join right here. All right, so with that, please join me in welcoming Mary today.
Thank you, Kate, for inviting me in for AWISE and for you all to come out on 5 o'clock. Hope you're not skipping dinner. And so I'd like to say that this is going to be really boring if I just stand up here and talk. And so the last thing I want to see is people nodding off. So feel free to ask questions. I've been doing this for a long time. So just like in other scientific talks, I may use acronyms or terms that you don't know. Don't worry about, there's no such thing as stupid questions, so feel free to interrupt me because I don't get that nervous anymore, but it does help when people, break up the presentation with questions. And it's also part of what I am trying to help scientists learn more about communicating, and I think, I've been to very many boring presentations where I think it could have been spiced up a little bit with a little bit more interaction. So as Kate mentioned, I got my PhD actually over at UC Riverside, and as I was driving up here today from San Diego, I was listening to the station and I thought, this is a great station, playing 80s. And then I realized it was K-Earth, which I hated when I was a grad student here because there was an old guy in the lab who used to play it. And it used to play 60s music then, but it's been 20 years. So it's nice to be back. So what I'd like to talk about today is your online profile. And so these days, it's easy. You can go to LinkedIn, and it will lead you through the whole process. And so it's important to know how to go through that process and to be very, online savvy. But anyone can do that, and what's really important is the content behind it and what you've been doing. And just like when you were in high school and your guidance counselor said you've got to have volunteering activity and they kind of forced you to do it, you have to do that as well. And I say you have to do it, but you need to find something that you really love or your career is going to seem like an eternity. So I'd also like to get a feeling for how online you are already and what tools you use. So how many of you are on LinkedIn? So about almost all, 95%. How many are on Twitter? So about 30%. Okay. How many are on, well, I won't ask about Facebook. How many of you blog? Just one. How many read blogs? Oh, that's cool. Like maybe 15 to 20%. Okay, and what else do you guys use as far as, besides Facebook? I know everyone's on Facebook, but Instagram? ResearchGate, okay. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if this counts, but like Google Scholar.
Yeah, definitely.
Profile there, and then you can just start having all your publications in one easy to reference.
Yeah, that's definitely a good, yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's good. Okay, great. And then, are you all in neuro, or are you coming from different areas? What other areas? Math. Great.
Psychology.
Oh, great.
From the School of Public Health.
Oh, that's awesome.
Microbiology.
Great. Physics? Oh, wow. That's exciting. All right, great. And then I asked before, but you're a mix of grad students and postdocs, mostly grad students probably. Okay, great. Well, that's good to know. Well, Kate introduced, oh, and also just one housekeeping item. You can download the presentation as well as the worksheet we'll be doing in the workshop at comprenia.com/UCLA. So what I'll be telling you about is kind of the first step, and there'll be a lot of links in that presentation where you can go and do your own homework afterwards. Right, so Kate introduced me, but just to give you a little bit more background on me. So this is me as a grad student at Duke. It was about a year before I moved here. And those glasses are back in now. My glasses that I have on now, so everything old is new. So I trained as a biochemist. I absolutely loved bench work. And it wasn't until later that I realized that there are some things about being a bench scientist or an R&D person that really didn't fit with my personality. And recently I did a Myers-Briggs test online, and I don't know if you've done that, but it tells you whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and it really helps a lot. And these days you can just do it for free online. So back then, I don't even think I knew what a Myers-Briggs was. And I kind of had to find my way. And I'm saying that I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, but it's kind of interesting this picture because I actually discovered email about 20 feet away from where this picture was taken. So if you can imagine, I was talking to my parents, etc., everyone I knew on the phone or with letters, and it seems kind of strange to think about. So I liked a lot of things that I didn't really know were going to help me later. I loved the web. I loved creating great visualizations of my projects. And I also loved events. I organized a happy hour while I was at Duke. And so, how do you make a career out of happy hours? Well, now I run a San Diego Biotech network, and we have events every other month. And so that's something I'll talk about a little bit more about now. So now, 2014, I have my own marketing firm, and so I help companies like Thermo Fisher sell products, and not just sell them, but create them so that you can use them and help to advance your research. So I'm very passionate about that. And also, as I mentioned, the San Diego Biotechnology Network. And I have a personal network of about 20,000, which is very powerful. People contact me to do business development, to get the word out, and it's something that I think in the coming years it's going to be more and more valued, because you can't just put an ad in Science anymore and expect to reach the same number of people. So what's really important is that I found my niche and I'm happy. So I would like to say that I'm rich too, but I'm not. But we're not in science to be rich, but I'm comfortable, and happiness is worth a lot. And there are a lot of things I do actually that I kind of go into the red. I kind of lose money on some things because I'm just so passionate about it. And that's something that I'm working on. But let me tell you, if you're looking at a clock all day when you're at your job, your life is going to be, not very much fun. So always look towards things that you really like to do. So, back then, before email, I had a hard time finding my way around, and today, I feel as though, even though there are so many of these tools, I feel like some people are stuck back in that time and they don't realize that they can email a famous scientist and they might hear back from them, that they can start a group on their own and use Meetup. We'll be talking about, there's several groups in the Los Angeles area that are using Meetup to start something in sciences. So I'd like to hopefully inspire you with 3 California scientists who really understand that there are fewer barriers now. So first I'd like to talk about Ethan Perlstein. I don't know if have any of you heard of him? So he's in the Bay Area, and he was running a lab. He was an academic scientist, and he was having a real struggle to get funding. So rather than bemoan that, or rather than take a low-level industry position, he decided to found his own lab up in San Francisco, and he raised money on Twitter through contacts that he got on Twitter, and he's been able to raise about $2 million. So one thing that's common with these scientists who I see as breaking down barriers is that they're very active on social media. So Ethan's on Twitter, and this is his handle. And then also, these are hashtags that he would use. And does everybody know what a hashtag is? Okay. So this is part of his personal brand. When I think about crowdfunding, if I'm going to have an event about crowdfunding, his name pops up first because that's his personal brand, or rare disease. And so that's something he's really worked on. So next is Ryan Bethencourt. And Ryan actually lives half of his life in Los Angeles working with the X Prize. And so the X Prize is a big competition with really far out project ideas. So actually I connect with Ryan professionally, but I'm also friends with him on Facebook. And last week he was posting pictures of a flying car, a real flying car. So this guy's life is amazing because he's working with X Prize and thinking about all of these really what we think are pie in the sky ideas, but they're starting to come to light. So there's also a big movement to blend tech and biotech, and that's something that he's doing up in the Bay Area. And I'll talk a little bit about some things that are happening in Southern California as well that are doing that. But of course we all know how much money there is in tech, and there's a feeling that Google and Facebook, etc., want to get more into biotech. So Ryan also works up in the Bay Area on the weekends at a lab called Berkeley Biolabs, which brings together these people that are in tech and biotech. And there's actually a group in LA starting that I'll tell you about later. So lastly, I'd like to talk about Erica Ullman Sapphire. She's a principal investigator at the Scripps Research Institute, and she was a grad student at Scripps when I was a postdoc there. So it's very interesting to see her doing so well. So she does research on Ebola antibodies, and she has gotten a lot of press recently, as you can imagine. And so she took advantage of this fact that she's been in the news, and she started a crowdfunding campaign to buy an instrument. And in over about 2 weeks, she was able to raise $100,000. And so this is pretty amazing. It's also pretty rare in San Diego because we feel as though all of the crowdfunding and all of the excitement is happening in further northern California. So I was very excited to see this. And what's also interesting about what Erica did is that you may have heard that the Scripps Research Institute was almost acquired by USC. And so I think you're the one audience that can understand if you were going to get acquired by USC, you'd be pretty fired up to not get acquired. So what Erica did, I feel, is take this challenge that her institute is having a lot of financial problems and turn that into an opportunity because people in the community know that Scripps is having issues. So these are 3 scientists that I hope are inspiring to you. They're all from California, and I think that what they exemplify is the fact that they need to go beyond what people are doing now to stand out. And the funding situation is not great right now for scientists. I'm sure you've seen that, and I'm sure you've heard about the postdocalypse, that there are postdocs that just stay. And, this really, gets to me, and this is why that like I said, I'm not rich, but it's something that we need to solve this problem. And I was really excited. Actually, about an hour ago, I got an email from this group called LA 2050. Have you guys heard of them? So they're trying to imagine what LA will be like in the year 2050, and they just sent this email that they're trying to hack the drought. And so I guess the mayor is having people to a Twitter party where they're going to talk about how are we going to get together and figure out ways to solve the drought problem. So that's really exciting to me. And I know water isn't exactly biotech, but water is needed to do biotech. So if your companies want to continue to have water, it's something very important, and you never know what might happen. So I'd like you to think about your resume as the starting point, and you need to have, as I mentioned, those extracurricular activities, which hopefully you can find some that you really like, because science is awesome, we all know that. So things like publications, that's always been the case that you need publications. But with things like altmetrics, I don't know if you guys have heard about altmetrics. So altmetrics is the field of studying how someone's online presence affects the popularity of a publication. So I actually worked on a turnip virus for my PhD thesis, and that's not very sexy. But if I had been on social media back in the 90s, I would have been trying to find every angle to make that as exciting as possible, and I would use my network. And good science is still good science, but I'm sure there are a lot of papers that don't get attention because people aren't out there promoting them. And it also goes back to your public information officer or your PR person at your institution. You should be working with them to say, hey, this paper's coming out, this is what it means. So publications are a big asset. Also, your social media presence. So what happens when they Google you? I mentioned Ethan Perlstein. He's at the PI level, but I'm sure he's hiring people in his lab that are very socially active. And they're also building their resumes as they're working with him. So you need to think about that. You need to think about internships. And this is something that, in your spare time, you might want to look into. So if anyone's interested in science writing, we hire people to blog. We're hiring people to write for one of our customers is the Scripps Research Institute. So a scientist named Andrew Sue has a blog called Gene of the Week, and he hires them, through us to write this blog post, and it improves his search engine optimization and improves the visibility of his lab. And I actually just thought of this. There's a group called NEURWRITE in San Diego, NEUWRITE. I don't know if do you guys have that here?
No, it's not here.
Okay, if you guys could have a satellite here, that would be fantastic, because, look it up. I can't believe I didn't think about it till now, but at least I remembered it. So internships, anything you can do, and these days it can be virtual. So, and I know you don't have much free time, but consider it. So also speaking. So you may have noticed I'm recording both of these. I record everything I do. You can do the same. You can do the same with your posters, your conference presentations. You can offer to go talk to high schools. Have a dossier of items that show that you can communicate your science as well, because that's important for grant writing, etc. And of course, you need to check with wherever you're speaking to make sure that's okay, and maybe choose conferences where it is okay to record yourself, and consider that that's important, that they need to help you promote yourself. So also your network is important. So when you're on LinkedIn, you need to build that network, and then when people are searching and they find you, if you're connected to them by someone that they know, then that helps you a lot. So, and we'll be talking a lot more about that later. So just to talk about your personal brand, what does that mean? So I want some people to tell me what they're working on, like just, I'm working on zebrafish, embryos, or whoever feels.
Interaction between diet and cocaine addiction.
Wow, okay, cool. That's great.
Molecular basis, that's what
Okay, great. That's awesome. Anyone else? All right. So I think that's great that you guys were able to just summarize it so succinctly, almost like you're talking to your grandma. And so that's an example. And so this would be what problem you would solve as well. You would think about how would, working on cocaine addiction, would you be working for a pain management center, and would you be the expert on, pain management for cocaine addiction? And I know cocaine and pain aren't the same, but, what job would that translate to, and what problem could you solve for somebody? And so, it takes some brainstorming, and we'll be doing that in the workshop. And, it doesn't have to be what you're going to do for the rest of your life. For my personal brand, I started out as an X-ray crystallographer in biochemistry, and then I moved to marketing, and then I did social media. So I just kept gravitating, and I used my prior experience to build on my brand. So also, it has to be something that is really exciting to you, because you just don't do your best work unless you're working on something really exciting. And there are so many things in this world that you can find that should excite you. So when you think about your personal brand and you want to get it out there, you want to be able to share information with people, and that's what people are doing on Twitter. That's what Ethan Perlstein is talking about, rare diseases on Twitter all the time, and he's giving resources. So when I want to learn about rare diseases, I look at his Twitter stream. So you'd want to be talking about learning and memory and follow blogs that talk about that, or start your own blog. And so, today there's just so much information out there. So you can use really simple syndication. You can usually read that from your browser. You can look at Twitter, look for hashtags in that area, Google Alerts, and LinkedIn. So you want to share the information and build your reputation in that area. And like I said, it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, but probably you'll be progressing, and you'll find something you like maybe a little bit better, or maybe something that has a better job opportunity for you. So, and then we'll also be talking about in real life networking, which is very important. All right, so this is a busy slide, and as I mentioned, you'll be able to download the presentation so that you can look at these. So I'm not going to read these, but this is just for your reference, and these are the 4 applications that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn the most, and since most of you are on there, it's like a professional Facebook. Then we'll talk about Twitter, which is really awesome because you can meet people that you have nothing in common with, except you're talking about the same topic. And there's a lot of activity going on at life science conferences. So I just went to a so-called Tweet Up in San Diego for the American Society for Human Genetics meeting, and they had 150 people there. And those are almost instant friends. If you're already on Twitter, you see someone that you've been tweeting with, and you already know them, and you don't have to feel like you're alone at a party. Blogging, of course, I'm a big fan, either writing or reading. Google Plus is at the end because Google keeps changing its mind about what it wants to do. Google owns us. They own all of our information, but they did this experiment on something called Google authorship, where they were trying to boost individual authors' SEO by looking at how much they're cited. So someone who's writing for Time magazine is going to have better SEO than someone who's got a anti-vaccine blog. So this is something they were doing over about the last 2 years, and then they just pulled the plug on it. So people are very hesitant about Google+, but they know that Google has us where they want us, and so you just kind of have to play the game and see where they go, but not spend too much time on it. So we'll just talk maybe one slide about that. So then just going to LinkedIn, So LinkedIn is your resume for the tens, if that's what we're calling this decade. So as we discussed, you have a personal brand and you need to put that in your headline. So I meet scientists when I'm at networking events and they'll tell me they're in so-and-so's lab or they're in a postdoc at Scripps. And what they need to be telling me is what you two just said. You work on memory in the, I can't remember exactly what you said, but that would give me an idea more than just the fact that you're working in so-and-so's lab, which unless you're working for someone who got a Nobel Prize, I probably won't know that person. Outside of the academic world, it just doesn't really hold much esteem. And so if you think about it, when recruiters are on LinkedIn and they're looking for people, that's what they're going to be searching for. If they're looking for someone who's working on cocaine addiction, that's what they'll search for. They're not going to search for a postdoc at UCLA. So that's something that's really important. So you need to think about the fact that both humans and computers are going to be looking at your LinkedIn profile. So humans are going to find you, and then they're going to look for a progression in your career, that you're going places and you're moving up. And they're also going to scan quickly and look for keywords that they think are important. And then also, LinkedIn has pretty good search engine optimization on the web, and LinkedIn has a really good search engine itself. So you want to also think about what keywords are important. So is cocaine addiction important, or is it something like the more general term for what the family that cocaine is in? That's something you need to do. You need to start thinking about your own SEO on LinkedIn and on the web. So you want to add past relevant positions. So I was looking at someone's LinkedIn profile the other day who I thought was my peer, and they had their high school education on there. And I thought, how old is this person? I don't mean to be an ageist, but I all of a sudden thought, if he's putting his high school education on there, it's kind of, like, that doesn't really pertain, like if you got all A's in high school, it's not really something I care about. So anyway, keep it professional and think about what's really relevant, and don't put your jobs that aren't relevant. And everything in science is going to be relevant. I'm not saying throw away. If you did a grad in one and postdoc in the other, don't just completely throw that away. But take a very critical eye when you're putting the positions on. So education is easy. You just put your education on there, and you can look to see if you have any colleagues on there. That's a good way to do that, to add people. And then LinkedIn has gotten really great about letting you add things like publications, projects, and volunteering. So in the old days, people used to say you have to choose between a resume and a CV, but these days you can just pack everything in there, and you can also rearrange it to make it look better and suitable for humans to look at. And we'll be talking more about that when we do the workshop. So then just completing your LinkedIn profile. So you want to include your complete contact information, because you might have someone who's a baby boomer who likes to call you, Gen Xer who likes to email you, or a millennial who wants to text you. So one of the things is that there's contact information in two places. There's contact information at the top, which only your connections see, and then near the bottom there's one for people that don't know you, and perhaps later I can go online and show you that. Another thing I see more often than I would think is spelling errors, and this is just, I almost want to just, because I'm a stickler for spelling. So unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't tell you when there's a spelling error, and there's all these big words on there that they don't have in their dictionary. So what you can do is download a PDF of your profile and pull that into Word, and then Word will tell you, and you'll be able to see which words, those big complicated words, and then the ones that should be spelled right. And then thinking outside of things you need to do, you can get business cards, and again, this is something that is so easy to do. There's a company called Moo that makes really cute business cards, or you can ask your institution. And you can also make what's called a vanity URL. So my LinkedIn address is linkedin.com/Mary Canady. And that's just a little bit more professional, and then you can put it on your business card. So a headshot is something that I think is very important. And again, it's easy to get these days. I was at a conference yesterday, and they were offering headshots for $30. And so if you just look around, you can get creative, or maybe ask a friend of yours who's a photographer if they want to practice, or even get a passport photo or something like that. It's a lot easier these days. So another important thing is to add connections. So when we do the workshop, we'll have a little spot where you can kind of brainstorm on where your connections could come from. Could be your job right now, could be your last job, could be people from AWISE that you've met, etc. And so actually, when I gave this talk at WIST, which Kate saw, I inspired some of the students down there to have a LinkedIn party. So they just got all their computers together, and they just ordered pizza, and they just all said, because they didn't really feel like doing it on their own, so they all got together and did it. So that's certainly something you can do. And then also follow. Okay.
I have a lot of friends who I know from college who basically treat LinkedIn like Facebook. And
Yeah.
they're in completely different fields than me, and they'll add me. And I don't know if that's like diluting like my connections by accepting that or not, so I kind of held back from doing that. Like, does it matter, or?
I would add them unless they're going to make inappropriate comments on your posts, because nobody's going to. They're going to see it when they look through your contacts, but they're not going to see their unprofessional behavior. But you would not believe, just add people unless you think they're going to be jerks, and you never know how it can help you, and maybe they'll start realizing that it's not cool, they need to be more professional, and maybe it's something you can tell them if you feel
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's like they're completely unrelated fields. Like, what does it mean or look like if I'm connected with a bunch of people that are just randoms?
I think that's okay, because I don't think someone's going to look at that level, because they're going to, they just don't have time to look at that level. So that's a good question. So you can also follow companies that you're interested in, and so this is really powerful because they post jobs, and you'll see that. And then while you're following those companies, you can see if there's anyone there that you already know, or someone that you want to be like. So that's another really big advantage of this day and age, is that you can kind of stalk someone, and not in a creepy way, but like Ethan Perlstein, you could follow him on LinkedIn, you can follow him on Twitter, and watch what he does and how he is successful. And so that's something that you can do, and in workshop we'll talk about that a little bit more. Right. Another thing that I think people don't leverage enough. Oh, sure.
What is that you set there as a setup for the job alerts?
So you can go to LinkedIn Jobs. I actually have it on here when we'll go through. So you go to LinkedIn Jobs. I might have to rely on my cheat sheet. So you go to the Jobs menu, and then you search for a job, and then on the right-hand side it will say Save Search. And then you actually have to go back to the Jobs page to find that. But that's we have a cheat sheet for the worksheet, which I can give you. So, and you have to be a little bit proactive and go back and look at it. But yeah, a lot of life science companies are posting jobs on LinkedIn now. So it's someplace I look if I'm looking for consulting work. All right, so LinkedIn groups are something that I think people don't realize are so powerful. So you can, once you join a group, you can directly email group members, and not all group members, but maybe half of them, and this is really powerful. And so on the other side, we've used LinkedIn groups to grow the San Diego Biotechnology Network, and so we have almost 9,500 people that are all San Diego biotech people. So they can go on and look for a local colleague and email them. And if you follow this link here, you can see we have a little how-to on how to do that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. And one thing you have to realize is these companies are all trying to make money. So LinkedIn's trying to make money. So this is something you can do for free, email members, but they don't want you to really know that, so they kind of bury it a little bit. So that's something you need to consider. So sometimes you need to be a little crafty. So you can post questions to the group. You know, perhaps you'd want to join a group about memory, or start a group about memory and ask intelligent questions or share information about research that you've found, and that helps your personal brand. Then once you join a group, your searches give more results if you're looking for someone for a company, so that's another benefit. So you can join up to 50 groups. You should join large, relevant, and active groups. So there's some wasteland out there. There's some groups that have just been turned over to the spammers. And there are a lot of great discussions going on, antibodies, recombinant proteins, medicinal chemistry. So I'm sure there's a lot of neurology ones as well in other areas. And LinkedIn's got a pretty good search engine, so you can search them. And so if you follow this link down here, you can get some tips from us about what groups to join. So then I'd like to switch to Twitter. And just so that we're all on the same page, Twitter is providing 140 character updates, also called microblogging. And if you watch the news at all these days, they talk about so-and-so said this on Twitter, and so it's really become a real-time news feed, and a lot of scientists are using it. Well, I would say probably 10% of scientists are using it, but that's still a lot of scientists if you think about the big number of scientists. And what I find is on Twitter that there are a lot of thought leaders there, a lot of really forward-thinking scientists there. That's why I like it. So you can reply to a user using the @ symbol, and everyone will see this. Everyone who's following the same person. If you want to show it to everyone, then you would put a period before this @ sign. That's just a little detail that Twitter uses. You can direct message a user, which some people have gotten in trouble by not doing this correctly, so use this very carefully, because if you do it wrong, you'll send a public message. And then the hashtags are really powerful. As I mentioned, conferences use them a lot, so you can find out what's going on at a conference even if you're not there by following the hashtag. And as I mentioned, you can follow on content. You don't need to know them, and this is really huge for meeting people. So again, you want to provide information based on your brand. And so you'd want to find other people in the memory field and talk to them and have a conversation. And this is something I do just about every day. All right, so just a little bit more. Again, you're always thinking about your SEO, your personal SEO. You want to fill out your profile completely and carefully, so when someone searches for a cocaine expert, research expert, or a memory expert, that they'll find you. And then you also want to get followers. I see a lot of people on there saying that they think Twitter is a waste of time, and then I look at they're only following 100 people. So it really does feel like they're out in the middle of nowhere. So you have to actually follow people to be followed, so people know that you're there. And so there's a lot of ways that you can do this using searches and conference hashtags. And again, all these applications are getting better at helping you to connect, because they hear this feedback that people say that, you know, it's hard to get started. So they'll make suggestions for people to follow. And then again, building your brand. You provide content. When you find those other Twitters that are working in your area, you retweet them. I've been talking with, I don't know who's behind the UCLA BSc account, but I've been retweeting them when they talk about this event. So, you know, I'm helping them out, and I'll follow them and maybe retweet another thing. And then there are a lot of apps you can use on your phone and on your computers and tablets. And you can follow this link for Twitter tips for scientists. All right, so blogging, we're a big fan of blogging. There are a lot of ways to use WordPress. You can either host something at WordPress.com and literally get your blog up in half an hour, or you can host your own, which is maybe an hour or two's worth of work. And you can also use Blogger, which is the same, 15 minutes to half an hour. Something for the under 40 crowd is Tumblr. I tried to do a Tumblr and I kept wanting it to be WordPress, so I don't quite get it yet. But if you're trying to reach younger people than me, then I would definitely suggest it. And then also you can join an existing blog network. So I talked about NerdWrite in San Diego. And then there's a very rich community of bloggers, and this is a document, a Google document that's been shared, and each circle represents a blog, and you can see it's quite rich, and they've even got a sense of humor. They've got this blog network here is the Deep Sea News, which is a shark and a ship here. So these bloggers communicate through writing comments on each other's blogs, and I can tell you there's been a lot of very interesting conversations both in the good area and the bad area over the past year. If someone wants to ask me about it, they can. There's been a lot of interesting developments, but at the core, everyone is just dedicated to science communication. And what ends up happening is, so I know one of the bloggers that's in this deep sea area, and his Twitter handle is Why Sharks Matter, and so he's a big shark conservationist, and so he's the one that gets called when someone Googles they need a shark expert, and so he's probably 30 something, and so that's just the new reality. Reporters are going to go to who they find when they Google. They're not going to use Google Scholar. They're going to use Google, and so it may not be perfect, but that's the world we're living in. So you want to be that person, regardless of what your publication record is. You want to maximize your potential for being recognized, and also for funding. Some of the granting institutions are also encouraging scientists to communicate, because they realize if the public doesn't see the need for science, we won't have funding for science. So something I'm very passionate about. All right, so Google, as I mentioned, Google Plus has people confused about what they're doing, but again, Google knows everything about us. So when you Google your name or your personal brand, what do you see, or the personal brand that you want to have? And we also have situations, I've had people come up to me and they say they have a really common name, and what do they do about that? And my advice is to always have your specialty after your name. Everywhere you can, you put your name and then memory expert or medicinal chemist, so that people can, when they're Googling, they can pick the names out. Or you can change your name, I guess. And people are, before they're having a baby, some of them are checking to see if the name, they can buy the URL. I haven't bought my own URL, I should. So you can, again, use a blog. If you're not quite ready for that, About Me is a great place to put all of your links, all your Twitter, etc., and have that be what people find when they Google you. Again, join Google Plus. It's pretty easy to set up. Set up a Google Scholar profile. Even I have one, and my last publication was in 2003. And I've joined ResearchGate and academia.edu. Some people ask me for reprints on my turnip virus papers, and I'm like, why? But and I have physical copies of them. I don't have, somewhere I have files on them. But it's just something that you need to keep up, and it's fun to do. If you like science, it'll be fun for you, because you'll look at how many people have cited you. And I'll do one more. When I was in school, I had to go to the physical library and open up these big books to see who had cited my paper, and there weren't that many. But today it's a lot easier. And also, again, you can just non-creepily stalk people and see what other people are doing and what's working.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
So you mentioned the advice for if you have a very common name.
Mm-hmm.
Does the same advice apply if you're competing with other names? Because my name, I don't have a common name, but I happen to share with a character in a Final Destination movie and a cat author. both
Wow.
of which have some amount of web presence.
Wow.
So would the same advice apply?
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. And you know, there people are smart. We've all become professional Googlers now. So they'll figure out a way to get through that, but you know, you might have to work a little harder. So all right. So I just want to say a little bit about Facebook. I will say, so this scientist I was talking about, why sharks matter, he said the other day that he doesn't need a social network for scientists because he uses Facebook. And I see there's some scientists who are really, you know, they've made friends with all of their scientist buddies and they talk. So it can be that, or it can be completely personal. But regardless of what you do, you have to kind of say, I'm not going to be posting anything questionable on there. It's just, you just can't do that. And you can shut down all your privacy and make that, but who knows what Google or what Facebook is going to do in a couple of years. So it's a sad reality, but you know, you've got to grow up, unfortunately. So manage the privacy, try to do it as much. If you really want to start posting some things like politics or something like that, you might want to shut down the privacy to prevent people from seeing it on the web. Change to your work name. I grew up with a nickname that I had to kind of die out, and my friends from high school don't like it that I use my professional name, but it's just I had to do it, even though it doesn't feel right sometimes. Keep politics at a minimum, and you know, no passed out photos. And you know, one thing that I've found is Facebook can be an excellent news feed, because you know, I struggle trying to find local news, so I just follow all of the local news stations and all of the science that I want to follow, and then it's all there in one place. I check up on my relatives and my friends, and I also get the news. So it's something you can do to be involved, and it also supports your local scientific organizations to share what they're sharing. And then you can decide, as I mentioned, whether you want to go all out and be that shark expert or the memory expert, or you just want to keep it professional. And you know, every once in a while when UCLA is having a cool science event, share that, or the local science museum. And that's kind of what I do. I share things, but I don't. And I do have some friends that are scientists, but I don't go all out. Okay.
First of all, how can you suggest that we deal with photos that other people have? And you know, you're not always aware when somebody is taking photos.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
and second, all this is a huge amount of information with all these networks, and I would like to ask if you have any suggestion on how to filter those families.
Yeah. So for the first question, I think the only thing you can do is untag yourself, and then just ask your friends, please, you know, don't. This is, you know, people might see me, and I don't know, and you know, maybe unfriend. If people really can't keep, you know, from doing that, you know, you need to make some decisions. And then as far as filtering everything, the RSS feeds are great. So and you know, people, there've been movements to the web to kind of not show that RSS feeds are important, but they really are awesome. And there's different. I might have to get back to you on the different types of tools that you can use. I'm trying to remember. There was one that would just take all of the information from your social networks. But does anyone have anything else that they've used? Because it changes all the time, and I just use RSS and emails. So, but I'll get back to you on that because it changes all the time. But you know, Facebook's gotten pretty good about showing you just things that are interesting to you. But the one thing they have done is, you know, if AWISE, I think they have a Facebook page. Unfortunately, AWISE has to pay to reach you, which is unfortunate because Facebook is a business and they want, you know, they don't want Coca-Cola out there just having free advertising, and they can't tell between Coca-Cola and a great group like AWISE. So you just need to follow them, and it changes all the time, but try to set it so that you get all the notifications from that brand. But I would say Facebook is really good. So.
Very hard time figuring out how to, figure out this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you also have to kind of learn, at least for Twitter, like it's a stream that you can step in and step out. And one way that someone put it is the good stuff rises to the top. So if something's really important, you'll see a lot of people liking it and sharing it, and hopefully that will, try to build a network that really helps you to see what is good. So, someone else had a question over there?
No, just a comment about the photos on Facebook. She had asked, there's actually a study on your security rating metrics to each photo that will appear on your profile, so that could be something.
Yeah, that's true, but there is a new thing on Facebook with the way upstairs that people can find in photos and they're not doing it. So if somebody else has your photos in the and they haven't found you, you can still be.
I think they are friends with the person that posts the photos as well.
Okay, one thing I want to point out that's really important, and I think we've touched on it here, is etiquette. So you wouldn't walk into a networking event and just start handing people your business card and not even talking to them. Somehow people have forgotten that online, and they're just blasting out information, hire me, I need a job. So think about that. And I think someone was saying that people are on LinkedIn acting like it's Facebook. Look at what's normal on a network and what other people are doing and what other people value. And for the second bullet, I have seen a lot of young scientists, not a lot, but the ones that I see are very noisy, have a very negative attitude, because there are some issues in science that are tough. And so I actually, if I'm thinking of inviting someone to speak, I don't, because I've seen them go on a rant and be very unprofessional, and it just sticks with them, because that rises to the top in my head. So just remember that people only know a very little bit about you if they only know you online, and so just keep things as positive as possible. And then also don't be a stranger. I can't tell you how many people email me right when they lose their job, and it's like, I haven't talked to you in 2 years, and now it seems very disingenuous. And so things like doing Twitter and just just sending someone a little reply, that just kind of keeps you in their mind, so you're not a stranger. All right, so I've been told I'm almost out of time, so I just want to make sure I end on time. So I want to talk about some really cool local things that are happening. So San Diego's got a really condensed biotech hub, and so we end up it's easier for us to have events. We actually tried to start a biotech network in the Orange County, and it was tough, just mostly because of driving. And so that might be tough for you, but the fact that you've got such a big city means that you've got a lot of really interesting people that are doing cool things. So lab launch, I'm not sure what part of the city this is going to be in, but it's a gentleman named Llewellyn Cox, and they're starting a DIY bio incubator. And maybe you're not ready to be a biohacker, but the people that start these things are very interesting people, and you never know what's going to happen. And I put the Meetup logo here because a lot of these groups are using Meetup as a quick way to get started. So again, I won't go through all of these, but you can click on them, and there's some really cool things going on. You can look for a Los Angeles or SoCal branch of your favorite association, such as the American Chemical Society, Society for Neuroscience, and if it doesn't exist, start it yourself. And if people are interested in a biotech network like we have in San Diego, let me know. It will be challenging, but there are things that we can do. And we actually allow people from Los Angeles to join our group. I looked, and we have 750 people from Los Angeles and Orange County in our LinkedIn group. So feel free to do that. It's on this page, or it's very well search engine optimized. So just one final slide. So you want to determine your personal brand, and something you're probably going to have to think a lot about, and really what you want to do. And again, it doesn't have to be what you're going to be when you're 60 years old, if you can even think that far out, because you're so much younger than me. And start small with something that's kind of appealed to you that I've talked about today, or something that you've heard about that maybe I haven't talked about. And there's all sorts of things that you can do, and also be creative. It doesn't have to be something related with scientists. Maybe you want to do outreach. Maybe you want to get involved with this drought campaign and think about ways to help them use a scientific way of thinking to go about it. And also, I just want to say start now, because as I mentioned, brands take time to build, and you don't want to be the person who, I need a job in 3 months, what should I do? So with that, I will end, and we will be working on this LinkedIn profile worksheet, which you'll be filling out with pencil, because I think if you just go online and start doing stuff, you don't really see the whole picture. So I want you to be filling it out, and of course we'll be helping you, and really think about how your brand is going to look. So you'll fill out this area, and then you'll indicate whether you've uploaded it onto LinkedIn and created it in this column. And then at the end, I have a little spot that you can write your elevator speech, and we can talk about whether you feel comfortable at the end of the hour getting up and saying your elevator speech, because it's, why not? And you'll have to be doing it when you go to a networking event anyway. So that's all I have, unless Kate wanted to give instructions on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mary.
Thanks.